Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, and welcome to the channel if you've not seen this before. This is a tag that I'm doing that's based around the June on the Range book event. So I'm taking part in the June on the Range book event. I've already put up a thing about what I'm going to be reading for it, and the June on the Range book event was created by Michael K. Vaughan to celebrate Westerns, and Steve Donahue, who you might know already, he's done this tag that is actually not that bookish, so most of the questions don't relate to books, but it does. They all relate to the June on the Range event, because basically Steve's taken some of the cliches that you might get in Westerns and the West as some of the prompts as well, and basically created this tag to kind of get to know booktubers a little bit more. So I think the prompts are really interesting. I think they're really good prompts. I will say that one of them in particular will be difficult for me to talk about, but I'm going to go for it. I'm going to try and do it honestly and answer it honestly, so we'll see how we get on. Hopefully it'll be right. If there's a cut and then it just goes to the next question, it might be that I didn't actually succeed in talking about it. But here we go. It's the Rootin, Tootin, June on the Range tag. The Rootin, Tootin, June on the Range tag. Okay, so, number one. A ways out west. Have you ever been to the American West? So I have actually been to America, and it was actually the West Coast as well. So I have been to LA. I've only been to America once, and that was to LA, and it's for a specific reason. We were there for 6 days. We did loads of stuff. It was an amazing holiday. Fantastic. I absolutely loved LA. And I think that's what we're getting at, because obviously California does feature a lot in some Western stories, you know, connected to the gold rush and stuff like that. And actually, when we went to LA, the taxi man that took us from the airport to our hotel gave us a bit of a potted history of California and LA. So that was quite nice, and he talked about the gold rush. But you do get that sometimes in the plots of Western stuff. So I think I'm in the right area there. So I really did like LA. There is actually a video on the Beamers channel of our trip to LA, a little vlog that we did, which I could link down below if you're interested. It's a very funny video with lots of nice cool bits as well. If you live in LA, you'll recognise obviously lots of it. But yeah, I have been to LA. I would like to come back to America soon, but I'm not sure where yet. But I would really love to go to America again. Second question, Dry Gulch. What's the smallest town you've ever visited? How small is your town right now? The smallest town I've ever visited. So there's a couple of things that came into my head when I read these questions. I mean, to talk about my town, I don't live in a town, I live in a city, and it's a really densely populated city, so you couldn't really call it a small town. It's Portsmouth in Hampshire, and it's on the coast, so I'm literally 5 minutes away from the beach, 5 minutes away from the sea, the Solent, and it's really densely populated. I don't know what the statistic is, but it is definitely one of the, if not the most densely populated cities in Europe. Certainly was. So yeah, lots of people. And when I think about there's tons and tons of small towns and small villages in England and in Britain. We got married in Flitwick, which is a very small village, I think, more than a town, but it might be a town. That's got a really small population, and we got married there because it's close to where my wife comes from. She comes from Bedfordshire. I think Bedfordshire's got a few small towns, like I think she grew up in Rushden, and that's quite small, and obviously been there a lot. But one of the nice places that we visited, which is a small, well, it might be a village again, it might be a village rather than a town, but you may have heard of it, especially if you're a science fiction fan, because we did visit Portmeirion in Wales, and Portmeirion is where they filmed the Prisoner series, and that's a beautiful place, and it's all it's specifically designed to look like. It's like, I think it's 18th century Italy, I think, but it's got this awesome design area with the you know, these strange things in there that were kind of used in the set of The Prisoner. But that's a very small village, I guess. I mean, village and town get a little bit confusing, really, I think, over here anyway. But yeah, that's my response to that. I'll try and put up the population of my city, Portsmouth, when I edit this. Number 3, where the buffalo roam. Have you ever seen an American bison in person? Yes, in a zoo. I have seen bison in zoos, but not roaming wild, because it won't happen over here. What's the largest hoofed animal you've ever seen? I don't know. Largest hoofed animal. I guess maybe the bison. I don't know. Do you have evidence that you live near coyotes? Right, because I think Steve might be aware of how prevalent they are. He said, don't mention foxes if you live in the UK. So I'm not going to talk about foxes. So I'm guessing he said this because they have a similar status or lifestyle or something as coyotes do in America, I guess. I don't know. But so I'm not going to talk about foxes at all. I'm not going to mention the fact that there are tons and tons of city foxes in Portsmouth, and I always hear them outside my street. We live on the main road, so we're like in the heart of the city, but there's loads of city foxes around. I'm not going to talk about that. I'm not going to talk about the fact that one night I remember I had this horrendous sound. It was the weirdest sound. It was really extreme, really loud, really I don't know how to describe it. It was such an odd sound, and you could hear it was many voices. I was like, what the hell is that? And it was really close by. You could tell it was close by as well. And I opened the front door, and there were 7 foxes running around outside my house. I think just playing. I don't think that they weren't fighting. They were just playing, and the sound they made were just crazy. So yeah, I'm not going to talk about that though. Just talk about coyotes, and I don't live anywhere near any coyotes. Number 4, Old Doc Fry. What's your history with westerns? Novels, TV, movies. Okay, so he's included novels, TVs, and movies. So novels, it's a new one for me. So June on the Range last year was the first time I tried reading novels that were about the Wild West. Last year I read Shane, and I read Sisters Brothers, and I also started an anthology which I didn't get very far in. I read a couple of stories, didn't really like it, so I sort of put it down for a bit. I still own it. I could finish it. That could be something I do in this June. Pick that up again. But I really enjoyed Shane, and I really enjoyed Sisters Brothers. There are some older American authors I really like that talk about America, talk about small towns in America, and have some similar tropes to the Wild West, but they're not really the same. So really, to answer the question properly, it's only really those 2 books that I've read so far. I've got some things lined up for this June on the Range, but yeah, at the moment, that's where I am with novels. With TV, there's not that many Western TV shows I can think of. I did watch Bonanza when I was younger. I don't remember a lot about it. I've got an image of the people in it, but I can't remember what the stories were like or much about it really at all. But I did used to watch Bonanza, and if it's relevant, I really like Westworld. So Westworld's a science fiction program that's got a Western setting. I do like Westworld, and I love the film Westworld. But as far as movies go, I like loads of Westerns, so I do like the Westerns as a setting for films. And I love the spaghetti Westerns. I love some of the classic Westerns. I love High Noon. I really love the film High Noon. I love the fact that it's in real time. It's one of my favourite films. But if I think about Westerns, I have to talk about The Magnificent Seven, because it's a really important film for me. It really is not just one of my favourite films, but it's a really significant film. So I'll give you an example about why it's so important, and like an illustration of its importance, if you like. So a couple of years ago, I might have mentioned already, I don't know, but a couple of years ago, I was very ill and I was in hospital, and it was all very scary. I and my family and lots of people thought that was it. I wasn't going to get through it. This was my last breath, if you like. And it was very scary. I got through it. When I got sent home, I was sent home to convalesce and recover, and I couldn't speak, couldn't really walk very far, couldn't breathe very well. So my wife has been an amazing nurse, and I was just pretty much just sitting on this settee, hardly moving for ages, for weeks actually, while I slowly recovered. And when I got home, my daughter and my wife came home with me, and they said, "What do you want to do?" We ordered a takeaway, and they said, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "I want to watch The Magnificent Seven." So we put The Magnificent Seven on, and I was smiling, even though I could hardly breathe very well, but I was smiling, and it made me feel good. And it was like I was pleased to be home, but still very wary of the fact that I didn't have the nurses with, and the ventilator and all that sort of stuff with me. But I was still glad to be home. But yeah, I watched The Magnificent Seven, and it that's what I wanted to do when I got home. So I think that speaks volumes about how I feel about that film. And I love The Seven Samurai as well, by the way, the initial inspiration for the film as well. But yeah, I do really like westerns. When I was a kid, I grew up at a time when there was a bit of a gap in westerns, and then Silverado came along, and that was came out of nowhere because people weren't really making westerns, and that was really cool. One of my favourite actors is Kirk Douglas, and he famously played Doc Holliday in Gunfight at OK Corral, which I absolutely loved. And you've got both versions of True Grit. The Coen Brothers version of True Grit's got Jeff Bridges as the main guy, and Jeff Bridges is probably my all-time favourite actor. So yeah, there's loads of examples of westerns I really like. So yeah, films, definitely, that's probably my closest connection to westerns so far. Number 5, Diamond Lil at the Rialto Saloon. What's your relationship with alcohol? This is the tough one. Okay, I filmed this earlier. I'll try and do it better this time. So my relationship with alcohol is complicated by the fact that my upbringing was such that I grew up in a household with an extremely abusive alcoholic father, and he ruined our family. He's caused all sorts of damage, long-term damage for all of us in the family. He was a horrible man, and my impression of alcohol was absolutely tainted by that. And I didn't touch alcohol. I was scared of it. I was scared of becoming him when I was younger. I'm not scared of that anymore, but I was. It was a real shadow that haunted me for many, many years. And alcohol and addiction in general was something that I was very scared of. So I didn't touch alcohol until I was in my mid-30s. So that's quite old to start drinking alcohol. But I do drink it on occasion now at the gigs, especially. If I'm gigging, I'll drink cider. And sometimes I do it for social reasons. But yeah, my relationship with alcohol was definitely coloured by that upbringing, which was horrible. Ever had a friendship with a bartender? I've known lots of people that have worked in bars, so yeah, countless people. Lots of my ex-students ended up working in bars because while they're trying to become musicians, professional musicians. So I've still kept in touch with some of those. Number 6, The City Slicker from the Back East. What did you consider the best Western you've ever read? Well, as I said, I haven't read that many Westerns, so I'm going to go with Shane because I really, really liked it. So it could possibly still be my favourite after reading lots of other things as well. I really liked Shane. I thought it was really nicely written, and I really connected to characters. I really cared about the characters. I thought it was just really well done. So, I really like Shane. Number 7, The Man with the Badge. Have you ever been in charge of other people? What's the most authority you've ever handled? Would you be good at it? Okay, so as you probably know, I'm a teacher. So I am in charge of lots of students, at the moment, well, up until Christmas, I was in charge of about 80 students. Now it's more like 75, no, more like 65-ish. And yeah, more like 80 actually. Yeah, more like 80. It was more than that before, so it's more like 95 up to Christmas and then 80 now. And that's a kind of an average, I guess, each year. And obviously, the teachers are many things, but one of the things they have to have an air of authority. So you are definitely in charge of setting the tone of the room, of clearly delivering the lesson, and you're in charge of the social aspects of the class as much as the educational aspects of the class, really. So lots of reasons why that particular job has a lot of significance in the authoritative aspects of it. So yeah, I've done that for 15 years. So actually in July, I've already created a tag that's going to come out in July on my anniversary of becoming a teacher. So that's going to be appearing on the channel soon, and that's all based around teacher-related prompts. But yeah, 15 years I've been doing that. Before that, I had a career in retail, and I had 15 years in record shops, and in those 15 years, that included 4 years where I ran the record shop. So I did have some authority in the big corporate record shop I worked in, and I was like in charge of buying some of the stock and in charge of the second floor for a lot of it. But when I went to the independent store, the specialist record shop, I did eventually run it for 4 years. So I had staff there, so I had to be in charge of that. And then actually, I have a very vivid memory of dealing with a member of staff that was thieving. So that was kind of interesting. But in general, it was a very huge learning curve, like a very important experience for me. And I've got a big soft spot for the record shop that I worked in. So that was number 7. Number 8, the Tombstone Kid. Have you ever fired a gun, or been a gun aficionado, or been shot? In the UK, guns are not seen as like a necessary part of life in the same way as they are in the US. It's quite removed from my psyche, really. It's definitely something I see a lot in fiction. So obviously I gravitate towards science fiction, and I watch like cop shows, and as I said, I like Western films. So you do see guns in some of the things I watch that are fictionalized things on TV and films, but I've never had any interest in holding a gun, having a gun, firing a gun, being around any guns. I don't see them as romantic. I see them as a negative thing. I only see it as a negative thing. I don't see any heroics in it. I don't see any positive thing in it, really. It's just as far as fiction goes, it's great. Having a gun in a situation is probably a great source of tension and storytelling or whatever. But yeah, I don't have any interest in actual real guns, and I wouldn't want to fire one, and I certainly wouldn't want to be shot. So yeah, that's my response to that one. And question number 9 is: it ain't the bullet that gets you, it's the fall. How would you ideally like to cash in your chips? So nicely worded. I think these prompts are really good. So how would I like to go out? And what I said in my first version of this, one of the things that I think is worth thinking about is I don't want to go with something like dementia, Alzheimer's, where your mind goes first, because I think it's really cruel to the people around you, because they have to mourn you a number of times. So the grieving process just keeps going because they see a spark of life in what you were, and then they think, or it certainly feels like you're coming back, and then you go again, and it's a particularly cruel thing for your loved ones to experience. So I wouldn't want that to happen. I'd love to be able to be in a position where I can give my sort of final words of love to the people that I cared about. And I guess I wouldn't want to die in pain. But yeah, other than that, yeah, I guess that kind of thing. So the last prompt is tag some people. So I think, I mean, Sean tagged tons of people. I was tagged by Sean, by the way. Thanks, Sean, for tagging me. But I was kind of interested in the prompts when Steve did it, knowing I was going to do the event as well anyway. So I know Michael K. Vaughan's going to do it as well. I don't know if Brandy from the Booklectic was tagged, so I tag Brandy. I tag Courtney from Tangible Reads, Chris from Unlimited Reads, Michael Cummins, I've probably been tagged already, and Read by Fred, and Roy Reads Anything has already been tagged. One last one. Vin from Revenant Reads. There we go. Go with that. So, and who was also a teacher. So, yeah. That's my tag. That went a lot smoother than the first time. It was yeah, you could you could see my eyes welling up when I was talking about the alcohol thing. But yeah. Thanks for watching. Please comment below on any of those responses, and see you next time. Thanks a lot.